I welcome you to my channel. Subscribe and listen to my new stories every day. In the dim light of our bedroom, the gentle rustle of the coat's fabric seemed almost like a whisper as I reached into the pocket of my wife's sleek, black trench coat. My fingers brushed against the edges of something unexpectedly smooth and stiff, 2 tickets neatly tucked away. I drew them out, my heart thumping with the thrill of discovery. They were tickets to the upcoming concert of The Midnight Strings, our favorite band, one that had been the soundtrack to many of our late-night drives through the city. I grinned, picturing the surprise on Lisa's face when she'd reveal the tickets to me. I imagined us there, under the neon lights, her hand in mine, recapturing the magic that had seemed a bit dimmed lately with our busy schedules. I tucked the tickets back into her coat, deciding to act surprised when she'd eventually hand them over. Days turned into weeks, and the concert date approached. Yet, every evening over dinner, I waited for her to mention the tickets, but she never did. My anticipation slowly curdled into confusion and then suspicion. Why hadn't she said anything yet? The day of the concert arrived, a Friday. I watched as Lisa prepared to leave home early, dressed unusually sharp for a supposed girls' night out. The air between us, once filled with easy banter, now hung thick with my unvoiced questions. As she kissed my cheek goodbye, a faint trace of her perfume lingered, mingling with my rising unease. "Have fun," I said, my voice a little too casual. "Thanks." "Don't wait up," she replied, flashing me a quick smile before hurrying out. As the door clicked shut, a restless energy took hold of me. The thought of following her crossed my mind, a fleeting impulse that I hesitated to act upon. It wasn't like me to doubt Lisa, but the gnawing in my gut wouldn't subside. Driven by a mix of dread and curiosity, I grabbed my keys and followed her from a distance as she drove to the downtown music hall. Parked across the street, I watched as Lisa met up not with her girlfriends, but with a man I barely recognized from her office. Mark, was it? They laughed easily with each other, and he handed her a ticket, the matching ticket to the one in her coat. The revelation hit me like a physical blow. The night air felt colder, harsher, as I sat there, the sounds of the city fading into a blur of white noise. Betrayal, sharp and bitter, settled in my chest where excitement had once bubbled. I drove home in a daze, my mind racing. The images of Lisa and Mark entering the venue together replayed over and over, each loop a twist of the knife. By the time I reached our empty house, a plan had begun to form, dark and driven by the shattered pieces of my trust. I would confront her, yes. But more than that, I would make sure she realized the depth of her mistake. She had chosen to step outside our marriage, to betray our vows for fleeting moments under the lights with someone else. I wouldn't just be a spectator to my own heartbreak, I would act, ensuring that this night would be the start of her unraveling as much as it was mine. The game had changed, and I was no longer just the deceived husband, I was a player too, bent on a revenge that would sever our ties completely. The morning after the concert was gray and heavy, mirroring the tumult in my heart. Lisa returned home with a carefree smile, unaware of the storm brewing within me. I was at the kitchen table, nursing a bitter cup of coffee, each sip as sharp as the fragments of my trust. "Morning, love," Lisa chirped, her voice too bright. She leaned down to kiss me, but I turned my cheek, the gesture stiff and unyielding. She paused, a frown creasing her brow. "Is everything okay?" I pushed the coffee aside, my hand steady despite the turmoil inside. "Not really. We need to talk." Her eyes widened, a spark of concern flickering. "About what?" I stood up, my chair scraping back sharply. "About last night. About you and Mark." The color drained from her face, her posture stiffening. What about us?" I took a deep breath, the images from last night flashing before me. "I saw you, Lisa. At the concert. With him." My voice was cold, harder than I intended, but necessary. She staggered back, a hand to her chest. I can explain." "Oh, I bet," I scoffed, the hurt twisting into anger. Were you ever going to tell me? Or was I just supposed to find out on my own? Lisa's eyes filled with tears, her usual composure crumbling. It's not what you think. Please, let me explain. But the time for explanations had passed. I trusted you, Lisa. And you were planning to go to that concert with him behind my back. I stepped closer, my voice a low hiss. You betrayed me. She sobbed, covering her face with her hands. It was a mistake. I'm so sorry, I never wanted to hurt you. The sight of her distress was a cold comfort. It didn't erase the betrayal, the lies. Sorry doesn't change what you did. What do you want from me? She pleaded, her voice breaking. I want the truth. All of it. Lisa wiped her tears, nodding slowly. Okay. I'll tell you everything. Just, please, can we sit down? We sat, the distance between us on the couch more than just physical. She took a deep breath and began, her words tumbling out in a rush of confession and regret. It started a few months ago. Work was stressful, and Mark, he was there. It was just talking at first. I didn't mean for it to go further, but it did. Listening to her, the pain was palpable, sharp. Yet, beneath it, a plan began to solidify. Her betrayal could not go unanswered. This wasn't just about a broken heart, it was about reclaiming my dignity, about setting things right. I understand, I said finally, my voice steady. You made your choice. Lisa reached out, touching my arm. What are we going to do? I pulled away, the decision clear. I think it's best if we take some time apart. I need space to think about all this. She nodded, tears streaming down her face. I'll stay with my sister then. Give you all the time you need. As she packed a bag, each movement was laden with the weight of her betrayal. I watched, the gears turning in my mind. This separation was just the beginning. I would make sure she realized the full consequence of her actions. The revenge I planned would be thorough, ensuring that Lisa understood the depth of the damage she had caused. When she left, the house felt empty, but my resolve was full. I would reclaim my life, one calculated step at a time. The stage was set for retribution, and I was ready to play my part. The silence in the house was deafening, a stark contrast to the chaos of betrayal that had played out just hours before. I sat alone, my thoughts dark with plans of retribution. The betrayal I had experienced from Lisa could not be swept under the rug, it demanded action, a response that would balance the scales. My first step was methodical, each move calculated. I picked up my phone and scrolled through the contacts until I found Mark's number, the man who had shared whispers and stolen moments with my wife. My finger hovered over the call button before pressing down firmly. The line rang, and with each tone, my resolve hardened. Hello. Mark's voice came through, cautious but unsuspecting. Mark, it's me, I said, my voice even. We need to talk. Now. There was a pause, a moment of hesitation. Okay, where? The Blue Tavern. 1 hour, I commanded before hanging up. Arriving early, I chose a secluded booth at the back of the dimly lit tavern, where whispered secrets could linger unnoticed. Mark entered, his face etched with confusion and concern. He spotted me and approached, his steps reluctant. As he sat down, I didn't waste time on pleasantries. You know why we're here. Mark nodded, his face pale. Look, I never wanted to come between you and Lisa. Save it, I interrupted sharply. I'm not here to discuss your intentions. You're going to end it with Lisa. Today. If you don't, the consequences will be severe. Mark's eyes widened, a flicker of fear passing through them. You don't understand. It's not that simple. Oh, but it is, I retorted, leaning forward. You see, I've got emails, texts, enough to make things very uncomfortable for you at work. Not to mention what your wife might think of all this. The color drained from his face. You wouldn't. I will, I assured him coldly. Unless you do exactly as I say. Defeated, Mark slumped in his seat. Okay, I'll end it. I'll tell her it's over. Good, I said, a small part of me feeling a twinge of satisfaction amidst the ruins of my trust. And one more thing, you'll resign from your job. It's best if you find opportunities far from here, far from us. Mark nodded, resigned. I'll take care of it. As he left, I remained seated, the weight of my actions settling around me. This was just the beginning of my plan, the first step in ensuring Lisa felt the gravity of her betrayal. Later that evening, I received a text from Lisa, her words cold and distant. Mark broke it off. He's leaving the company. What are you doing? I didn't respond immediately. Instead, I poured myself a drink, the liquid smooth and sharp going down. Finally, I replied, just taking care of things. The next part of my plan was more personal, a direct strike to what Lisa held dear. I knew her social circle, her friends who had likely been complicit in her secrets, or at least blind to the signs. One by one, I would meet with them, sow seeds of doubt, of the true nature of Lisa's character. By the time I was done, Lisa would not only feel the sting of lost love but the cold isolation from those she considered close. It was a harsh retaliation, one born from the deepest betrayal. And I was just getting started. The air was chilly as autumn's grip tightened around the city, leaves swirling in the cold breeze like whispers of the deceit that had unfolded. The weeks following my confrontation with Mark were methodical and cold. I had dismantled Lisa's circle subtly, ensuring each friend doubted her loyalty, each colleague questioned her integrity. But the final act was yet to come, one that would sever all ties, forever branding the memory of betrayal. Lisa had moved back to the house to discuss terms, as she called it, naively hopeful for reconciliation or at least closure. She stood in the living room, a shell of the woman I had married, her eyes wary but desperate. Can we just talk? She pleaded, her voice quivering slightly. Maybe there's a way we can work through this? I interrupted, my tone icy. No, Lisa. There's no going back. She took a step forward, her hands reaching out. I made a mistake. A horrible mistake. Can't we try to? I stepped back, my decision encased in steel. You don't understand, do you? It's over. Not just us, the life you knew, the friends you had, your career. It's all tainted now. Her face paled, understanding dawning as her eyes darted around, noticing the absence of several personal items, photos, memories. What did you do? I ensured everyone knows exactly who you are, I said, my voice steady and cruel. And with your little escapade with Mark now public knowledge, I'd imagine finding a job in this town will be challenging. You ruined me, she whispered, her voice breaking as her whole body trembled. That's what betrayal earns you, I replied, devoid of the love that had once consumed my heart. As she absorbed the magnitude of her new reality, there was a knock at the door. Confusion crossed her features as I walked past her to open it. Standing there was a process server, a man with no stake in our drama but the deliverer of the final blow. Lisa Harper, the server asked, his voice neutral. Yes, she managed to reply, stepping forward. He handed her an envelope. You've been served. Divorce papers, he announced, before turning and walking away. Lisa tore open the envelope, her hands shaking. As she read through the documents, her knees seemed to buckle, and she sank onto the sofa. Her eyes, filled with tears, met mine, searching for a sign of the man she once knew. I will rebuild, she said finally, the fight seeping back into her voice, albeit weakly. And I will never forgive you for this. That makes two of us, I responded coldly. You'll never see me again after this. Consider us strangers. With that, I turned to leave, my steps heavy but resolute. But before I could reach the door, Lisa's voice stopped me one last time. Was it worth it? All this vengeance, she called out, her voice hollow. Pausing at the threshold, I didn't turn back as I spoke. You taught me that some things are unforgivable. I stepped out into the brisk air, the finality of the moment settling in. My heart was hardened, the fragments of trust and love swept away in a calculated storm of revenge. The path ahead was solitary, but it was a path I had chosen the moment betrayal had darkened my doorstep. There was no turning back.